Hello and welcome to Performance Management Training for InMotion Entertainment Group. It is June of 2017 and we are getting ready for our performance management in July, August, September. My name is Bob McKenzie. I am the Interim HR Director for InMotion Entertainment. I'm taking over for a little bit for the wonderful and spectacular Marissa Farley. I also want you to know that you can take notes. You can ask me questions, not right now because this is being recorded, but you can call me at area code 904-655-2120. That's my cell phone. Again, that's 904-655-2120, or B. McKenzie at InMotion Entertainment Group. Or InMotionStores.com. Sorry, I'm new to this. So anyway, I'm just going to go over some of our objectives that we have for the training here. Here is the first thing, is to gain a better understanding of your role as a leader manager. I also want to have you gain commitment of your employees, and we'll go over all of these in a little bit more detail as we go along. Establish goals and standards for performance. Very important, understanding the purpose of performance appraisals, improving the performance appraisal discussion, and then dealing with those difficult people. But most importantly, you're going to be so good at this and your people are going to be so committed to what's going on that you're going to have your boss sing your praises. And I think that's the most important thing about any kind of training, that you get something out of this and then you implement it and you do well, and your boss will love you. So therefore, listen intently, take those notes. First thing I want to go over is one of my very favorite sayings. It's, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. That's Margaret Mead, an anthropologist. And you know, I don't know if I'm going to go out there and change the world, but I can change my little part of the world if I have a number of thoughtful, committed people working with me. And if you have a couple of thoughtful, committed people working with you, you can indeed change your part of the world. So here we go. We're going to tell you how to go about doing this. So first of all, in 5 words or less, what is your primary role as a manager? Think about that, just for a little bit. Okay, you got your ideas? Well, this is the real primary role, is to take responsibility for talent improvement. The whole idea is to continually improve, continually get better. We're in a very interesting business where technology kind of tells us where we have to go, what we have to do, and the constant changes have to be there, and a constant improvement for talent, your own talent as well as the talent of the people working for you. That is what we can have to continually strive for. And we do have a lot of training programs. We do have a lot of programs that are going on that, man, I tell you, I'm impressed with InMotion Entertainment Group and everything that they're doing. So that's the whole thing, is we kind of constantly go after that. Now I've got another question for you. What is the purpose of performance appraisals? Go ahead, think about it. Have an answer? Okay. Here's my answer. To improve future performance. That's the only reason we have for performance appraisals. A lot of people say we want to go back in history and kind of tell about the good things, the bad things that people have done over the course of the performance review period. But the fact of the matter is we've got to use all of that from the past to actually put things in place to improve future performance of all of the associates you have working with you, as well as yourself and your stores and your regions and your areas. So be cognizant of that. That's really what this whole thing is all about, to improve future performance. Here's where I kind of take a look at this. Is employees, fall into one of, I would say, a few categories, okay? Here is the thing is that, when you're doing your performance appraisals, think about who falls in, which one of your employees falls into these categories. Either they're committed to the values, mission, goals, objectives of what you're trying to accomplish. They're compliant. Okay, it means that they do the job, they come in, do the thing, go away, and they're not really superstars, but they're good, and it's not something that you want to do to kind of maybe necessarily move them out, but maybe we can do something to move them up to being more committed, to the entire, like I said, goals and objectives of the organization. They're complacent. Listen, the InMotion Entertainment Group has been doing very well lately. I mean, I've seen all kinds of revenue records since I've been there since March. There's a lot of activity, a lot of things going on. You've got your road shows, your managers meetings, a lot of things to keep things going. But at the same time, when things are going well, it's almost easy to fall into complacency. And the whole thing is you cannot allow that to happen. Complacency, if you get complacent, you fall behind. If you're not continuing to improve, you're falling behind. So that's the thing that's extremely important to think about. And if you have anybody that's complacent, then we've got to, again, get them up to the committed stage. Or they're complaining. Now, we all have complainers. And people, I don't know what it is. I mean, I've been doing this for 40 years, and for some reason or another, we see a lot of people kind of fall into the complaining stage. They complain about a lot of different things that go on instead of looking at the good part of what's happening. The problem that typically happens with complaining is they complain to each other and not to you. So what we've got to do is kind of keep very vigilant, be in control, I should say, of what is happening, what is being said within the organizations. And I know you're spread out geographically, so that kind of makes it a little bit more difficult. And when I say geographically, I still mean within a particular airport. You may have 4 or 5 stores in an airport that you're responsible for. People will complain, and if you're naive enough to think that they're not complaining about you, then you're naive. And I just want to kind of let you know that that's kind of what people do for some reason, but we've got to change the complaining to solutions. And that's, if they have some kind of complaints about what's going on, let's change it. Let's kind of get them committed. It's probably easier to get complaining people to committed if we listen to them and we do something about some of the solutions that they come up with. Stop complaining. Talk to me. Okay? Let's just kind of get, stop complaining amongst yourselves, I should say, and talk to me. That's an extremely important thing. So that's my thing here. So we got to gain commitment. So we're trying to make sure that people are on the committed stage. The first thing we've got to do is hire and expect the best. We're still in a process right now of changing over some of the hiring practices that we have, and not sure if it's going great. It's going okay. It's going better than it was. So that's the whole thing, is that we've got to continually to improve our processes and just think about hiring and expect the best from the people who are good for our organization. Got to set those clear goals and standards. 99% of the people, if you set those goals and standards, they're going to meet them. Okay? But you've got to make sure that you not only set them, but you follow up, you coach, you counsel, you gain that commitment from those individuals by being at their side and helping them out, especially when they're new. Okay? Provide meaningful work. Look, there's people who are not interested in doing what we do. Well, guess what? It's not going to be meaningful for them. So we've got to find individuals that like what they do, like the stores, like the products, can sell them, and it's meaningful to them, especially when they start making sales and gaining some commitment from customers. What a great concept, huh? So those are the kinds of things that we have to do. Now, from a leadership standpoint, there's some other things that we have to do. We've got leadership, values, culture of the organization. Yeah, there's got to be some decent compensation and benefits, and the fact of the matter is that we've got both going on for us. With some of the incentive plans, bonuses, contests, those kinds of things, and we do have a very comprehensive set of benefits, which are extremely competitive. In fact, more so than most in the retail industry. Development, the training and development, we've got to continually develop our employees. The more we develop them, the more commitment we can gain from them. Okay, got to have a decent work environment, one that's fun to work in, one that individuals provide teamwork. I mean, people are more apt to work and gain that commitment when they work together, and the teamwork is incredible. Okay, got to have a good reputation. Guess what? In the last 2 or 3 years, you've won some very prestigious customer service awards. So the reputation is there, and you've got to maintain that and not get complacent with regard to the customer service that we're offering. Here, all of these have that impact on job satisfaction, commitment, and intent to stay. So if we're looking at all of these are extremely important kinds of things. And the reason I'm going over these things is that performance appraisal is, like I said, it's there to improve future performance. So let's just keep all those kinds of things in mind when we're doing our performance appraisals. Understanding the goals. That's also important, that we know what the organizational-wide goals are. And, these are well communicated all the way across the board. But they then, in turn, go down to regional and areal goals. Then, in turn, go into store goals as well as individual goals. So we've got to understand that and make sure that we're constantly communicating progress in meeting some of these goals and objectives all the way through the organization. So that's another thing that keeps people committed. Your manager's role. Let's just say, set those measurable goals and standards. Establish those competencies. Go over them a little bit more. Constantly try and enhance that commitment. Okay? Be honest with your evaluations. And I think that in the past you have looked at some of the scores from last year, and I think that you have been extremely honest with your performance appraisals. Geez, I can remember working with a client a number of years ago where 90% of their people had 5s across the board. And I said, you must have a great work environment. Well, that wasn't true. They didn't have a great work environment. In fact, it was a horrible work environment, mainly because they weren't honest in their evaluations. They were just kind of like sliding through and taking the path of least resistance by giving people high reviews and not really improving in their organization. So you got to be honest with your evaluations. That in turn will enhance your productivity and your sales. And then you got to be very timely with your appraisals. That's extremely important that you be on time. Listen, I want to make sure that we are trying to get this started a little bit earlier than we had in the past. And the reason for that is to make sure that the appraisals are done on a timely basis. There's nothing worse to bring someone down than to say, hey, we're going to have our performance review on the 14th, and you set the time and you don't go there, or they're expecting it on the 14th and you don't even talk to them. Listen, let's do the performance review on the 14th, and if we can't make it for any reason, then we've got to tell them in advance and reschedule it. So the appraisals have to be timely and make adjustments. That's another thing is that, this is an open discussion when you have a performance appraisal. So the thing is that if the employee comes up with something that, an example of, you give somebody a low rating and they say, wait a minute, I've done this and this and this that are really good things, then make those adjustments. Be a human, okay? So that's or if you don't feel the need to make an adjustment, make sure that you have a very good explanation for it, because the whole idea is to try and motivate employees to improve their performance. Setting goals. Now, if you've been through any kind of management training, you know that there are SMART goals out there. Okay, SMART goals are specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're relevant to the goals and objectives of the organization, they have a time-based kinds of thing, like, we have to sell so much by when. That's really what I kind of talk about here, is that they've got to be, when you're setting goals, it's like how much or what has to be done and by when. They're specific, it's measurable, and make sure they're attainable and they're not so far out of whack that somebody can't even make it. They got to be relevant to the organization, and then by when. Okay, but we're smarter here at InMotion Entertainment, so we're also going to set those goals by having them be energizing. It's nothing better than walking into a place of business where people just feel energized. Just think about that, okay? You walk into certain places and people are like hanging on the counter or on their cell phones or on this thing, but when you go into a place where people are energized and they greet the customers right away with a little bit of enthusiasm, that makes the sale right there, okay? Because they just have that aura once you walk into the place. But it's also got to be an R for remarkable. That means that people will say, wow. I want individuals out there to look at what you've accomplished and say, wow. And you've already done that a couple of times by having these customer service awards. So there you go. You're well on your way. Don't get complacent. Checking your standards. Okay, yeah, okay, are they specific? I'm going to go over this quickly. Measurable, are they realistic? Are they consistent with organizational goals? Do they have time limits? Are they challenging? And that's really important too. That's where the energizing kind of thing comes, where people need to be challenged, and then you got to have that wow factor. So you've got it going on here. Here's some of the manager competencies that we have to kind of take a look at here. These are the things that stimulate excellent performance. Okay, you've got to have those leadership skills as opposed to management skills. We've got to provide that direction. Okay, lead courageously. Okay, influencing others. That's an extremely difficult thing to measure, but you've got to have that influence on individuals to make them want to succeed. That's what leaders do. They got to foster teamwork. That is another thing that is going to be extremely important because of the work environment. That if you foster good teamwork, the work environment, the reason for coming to work, okay, is enhanced. So got to think about that. It's got to be motivating, okay? Coach, develop. That's what is another leadership skill. Continually coaching, continually developing, continually getting people to improve. And then champions of change. Listen, we're in an electronics industry that is constantly changing, and the challenge, I guess, that we have is to try and keep up. So we have to continually change. Change is a good thing. Okay, a lot of people have that resistance to change, but we've got to put in, as far as the manager competencies are concerned, champions of that change. You've got to continually try to keep up, and it's a very difficult thing, but I think you're all up to the challenge here. Okay, let's just talk about performance appraisal. First of all, we got to define what is acceptable before the performance appraisal cycle begins. I don't know how many times that some of the definitions of the performance factors are not even talked about until they get to the review, when it's already too late. Okay, so we got to set the rules before the game begins, because otherwise we're changing them as things go along and people get confused. So we've got to find what's acceptable, what meets standards before the appraisal begins. So we've got our performance factors. Okay, the NPR score, which is 25%, so that's high. Now, I know that you communicate the NPR score to everybody, and that's wonderful. And keep that going on and keep coaching people to get that NPR score up. Customer service is 15%, again, pretty highly weighted. So that is, not everybody understands customer service. And I think what we have to do, especially some of the younger people growing up who never saw customer service in their life, the world is changing now. We seem to be making that whole 360-degree turn where we went from good customer service to horrible customer service to back to to looking at a high level of service, and you're providing it. You already have. You've proven that. But you got to, again, cannot get complacent. Store operations, okay, loss prevention, and you can read them on the performance appraisal form. So I'm not going to go over all of these. Talent management, look at that. It's only 10%, where I'm supposed to say you're constantly improve talent management. Well, all of these other things go along with talent management. So just remember that these are the things that we're looking for, but it's still pretty highly weighted at 10%. Sales aptitude. Training and development. Are we training our associates? Are we, am I personally, or is the store manager personally developing themselves and keeping up with the latest and greatest? If not, then they've got to do some self-improvement. I think that's important, as well as training the associates on the floor. Okay, commitment and attendance. See, we got some good stuff in here. It goes right at professionalism and leadership. Got to be a team player. That's where that whole teamwork comes into play, and the communications are extremely important. Now, it's only 5% weighted here, but all of these things take a very high level of communications, follow-up, coaching, counseling, what to do, and keeping on top of things as we continue to move. 6 rules for an effective performance appraisal. Number 1, define that acceptable performance level. Apply objective standards as much as possible. Trying to apply objective standards to team player or communications is a little bit difficult, but we continually to try to be objective as possible with the standards that we have here. Set realistic goals, which you have. You've set realistic and stretch goals, so we're there. Got to have a continuous process. In other words, performance appraisal, and I really shouldn't have put appraisal on the top of the form here. I should have put management, because performance management never stops. It continues to go, and it continues to go all the time. When you're doing an appraisal now, you've got to prepare. Let's take a look at one of the things I think that we have a good thing going on here is that we do our performance appraisals at pretty much the same time each year. So it allows you to make some comparisons of the different levels, the different performance levels of all of the people that you're doing performance appraisals for. So take a look at that. Take a look at the standards, okay, the performance factors and your standards, and make sure that you have everyone kind of lined up. I mean, the whole idea, not only with performance appraisal, is we're also looking at salary increases. Thing is that what we want to do is we want to give more reward to the higher performers and low or no reward to the lower performers. And the idea is to increase that spread between the merit increases percentages for the high performers than they are for the lower performers. The performance appraisal must be open, okay? It's got to be open communications. It's very important. When you rate somebody low, you got to have specific examples. When you rate somebody high, you've got to have specific examples. And if you need to talk to some other people about them, then fine, let's do that. But the whole thing is prepare, be honest, have those specific examples of reasons why individuals are scored low. It could be, there's certain things like their NPR score could be low, or their NPR score could be very high. So use that as those as examples, okay? And be on time. I went over that already, but be on time. Just an important thing. Here's another thing here. Review results on meeting standards. This is when you sit down, okay? Meeting standards, stated standards and objectives. Okay, understand what does the employee want out of the job? What are their career goals? There are certain people that are working with us that are college students, quite a few, that all they want to do is just make some money when they're in college, and that's fine. But maybe, just maybe, when they graduate, they might want to kind of stay with the company. So let's just understand what their career goals are, and you know what? Give them some flexibility. If they need that flexibility and understand what their career goals are. You got some other people that might be out of college, just working the job. Some people are good. They might just want to be the best retail sales associate in the world. Well, go ahead. Let them do that. But understand what their career goals are and understand that. Improve on competencies. That's really what we got to look at, is improve on some of those competencies, the team player, the communications. Those are all things that probably, and I would say everybody needs to improve. So that's important. In fact, I want to ask all of you a question. Anybody that's listening to this. This question is important. How many, can you honestly look in the mirror and say that you've done a perfect job in the last 12 months? Can you honestly look in the mirror and say there's nothing that needs to improve? Well, if you say yes to both of those questions, then you're lying. And I want to tell you, you're just lying, because everybody needs to improve. And that's one of the things that why we have performance appraisals, is to take a look in that mirror, and let's just see what we can do to make improvements on our management skills, on our sales goals, on turnover, a lot of different things that are in there, and making sure that we're doing some more on the coaching and counseling. So we've got to improve on those competencies as well. And of course, improve that future performance. Can't say it enough, so I'll move on. Monitoring the performance. Look, there's got to be ongoing follow-up, okay? You got to provide feedback on an ongoing basis. Good, positive feedback is extremely motivating, and I want to make sure that everybody kind of understands that. And I also want to ask this question. How many of you feel like you've been patted on the back too many times? Because if you've been patted on the back too many times, then and it's usually not what we hear, okay? Usually what we hear is the exceptions, the bad stuff that happens. So we get the corrective feedback. But what we do need, and we need to motivate people by patting them on the back and telling them that they do great work. And I think that is motivational. So you have that continued follow-up, make adjustments, where necessary, and then keep following up, okay? Coaching and counseling when necessary throughout the process, okay? So now, we're going to get to the conducting the performance appraisal. Let's talk about this. Here's some musts. No surprises. Okay? You understand what that means? Okay? If we've been doing everything we were talked about in the last slide, there will be no surprises. So somebody's not going to be rated low when they thought they were like exceeding expectations. So that's where the surprises come from. Okay? Honesty. Talked about this before. Got to be honest in your appraisal all the way through. Okay? Accurate. It's got to be accurate. If it's not, then you're going to lose credibility in the performance appraisal process. So if you're not accurate in using certain examples of good, bad performance, then you're, like I said, you're losing credibility. So it's got to be accurate. And it's got to be fair. That whole concept of fairness, excuse me, the whole concept of fairness is extremely important because it's different to each individual. If we take a look at the next slide, we kind of take a look at this and say, fairness to the associate, okay? But they have a different idea sometimes of what fair is, okay? Fairness to coworkers. Okay, if someone is not a team player and not helping out, and not doing what they need to do to make sure that things are working well, then not only for them but for others, it's not fair to the coworkers. Okay, if they start taking sales away from other people, that's not fair. Okay, so we've got to look at that from a teamwork standpoint as well. Fairness to the organization. What's fair to the company? And then you have fairness to yourself or to the manager. Okay, allowing mediocre performance is not fair to anybody. So what I'm saying here is just make sure that you are on track as far as kind of keeping things fair. And like I said, it's a concept that we all have a different idea of what's fair and what's not. So just take a look at that. Now we get to the discussion, okay? make sure we have a private setting. Now, I know in some airports and some small stores that you have, but it's hard to do. Find one. Go into a restaurant or one of the other places, sit in the back, have a cup of coffee in one of the booths or tables in the back of the place. Try and do it when it's not a busy time for the airport. So have that private setting, okay? Make sure that you give the individual your undivided attention. Turn off your cell phone. Make sure the associate turns off their cell phone. Put it on airplane mode. Whatever you have to do to make sure that you will not get interrupted, because the most important thing at that point is to have a performance discussion with your employee. Okay, review those accomplishments. You know, I think build them up a little bit. Some of the things that they have done well. Review, scoring, and reasoning. One of the most important things here is that people have to have reasoning. They have to have rationale. You know, communicate what they have to do and why. Everybody wants to know. It used to be, you know, you say jump and everybody would say how high. Now they say jump and they go, why? So it's a whole different thing, okay, that we have to have some reasoning behind that. Review those competencies, okay? Ask for comments, questions, okay, and have them sign, obviously have them sign the performance appraisal too. Here's some things that you have to kind of look out for. I mean, there's many of these, what they call, you know, performance appraisal biases kind of things, but you've got to be careful to look for a few things, like, for example, rater bias. You know, you might have someone that you really like. They may be a good employee too, but you're going to rate them higher. Okay, they probably meet standards, but we're going to rate them exceed standards because we just like that person more so than maybe somebody else. So you've got to be careful about that and look at the objective standards and see if they've met them. Okay, just another thing is the rater bias. It could be something that you just don't like about somebody. You may not look at their appearance, you know, or we have the recency effect. So everybody knows the performance appraisals are coming up in a month or two, and so I'm going to be on my best behavior. And that's all we remember are the last month or two of their performance instead of looking all the way through the entire review period. So we're rating people on their recent behavior. Now, if they've gotten better recently, then you can state that. But you got to maintain that as well. A halo effect, kind of a little bit, you know, along with the rater bias. However, it's a little bit different. You can have somebody that's the best salesperson in the world that's horrible in teamwork, but we're going to rate them high in teamwork because they're good in sales. So we're just going to make sure that they are good in everything. So we have this thought process that if they're good in sales and their NPR score is high, then they must be good at everything else. May not necessarily be the case, and in fact, it's probably good feedback to give to these individuals if, you know, their communication skills with coworkers or the teamwork is not great. So we got to be honest about, you know, some of that and be careful of the halo effect, just as we got to be careful of the horns effect. Might be that someone's got great teamwork, great communication, but their NPR score is not so high. They may have great customer service skills, but they may not have, you know, some other skills that are necessary. So we've got to take a look at that too. And so the idea here is not if somebody is rated bad, they must be bad at everything. Be objective in each and every one of those 11 performance factors we have on the form. Leniency. You know, there's some of us are just don't like to have that honest discussion. It's like confrontational for us. It doesn't have to be confrontational. Okay, and the idea I'm thinking here is that, okay, somebody should be rated marginal, but we're going to give them meets, okay, because we don't want to get into that discussion. Somebody might, you know, be, you know, unsatisfactory, and we'll rate them marginal because, again, we don't want to get into that kind of discussion. So we're going to be a little bit too lenient and, you know, not really make those, and it's not really honest and not really make those kinds of, I don't know, discussions that we have. And on the opposite side of that is the strictness effect, okay? Look, we got this balance over here, okay, that we've got to make sure that we maintain. Strictness is just on the other side of that. It's like when someone meets standards, but we're gonna rate them marginal because of the fact that it's still not good enough for me, because I don't rate anybody as a 5 on anything, because nobody's perfect. Well, maybe they do exceed standards in certain areas. So I think, again, we've got to look at ourselves when we're doing these reviews to make sure we don't fall into some of these categories. Okay, so with that in mind, we're going to look at the difficult people. We've got our bobblehead, pet rock, nattering nabob of negativism, dominator, volcano, and the failure. So here we go. Here's the bobblehead. You got him right here. Employee who agrees way too quickly to everything that's being said. The yes man. You know who that is. And here is that bobblehead. Yeah, they've got that smile on their face. They got the suit on. The hair is impeccable. And then what happens is they're just going to nod their head as whatever you say, and they agree way too quickly to certain things. And so what I think we want to do is get this bobblehead, okay, to talk. Ask open questions. Ask certain things that have said, okay, if you agree with that, what do you think you can do to make improvements? What is your next step? Talk to me about what I can do to support you, to instead of just nodding their head and saying, yeah, 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 yeah. So I think that what we've got to do is just kind of, like I said, ask those open-ended questions as much as possible for the bobblehead. And make sure that we get into that open communication and open discussion. Okay, here's the pet rock. Now, I'm showing my age here because I've been in this business for 40 years. When a lot of people had pet rocks sitting up on their shelves, it was like, I don't know, status symbol of some sort. But, you know, the pet rock just kind of sits there. And it's a wonderful thing. They had little nests for them and things. But one thing about it is that the pet rock says nothing, does nothing. You don't have to water it. You don't have to do anything. But anyway, this is the person who says nothing, just sits there quietly and stares. It's a silent employee. You got to treat the pet rock a little bit like the yes man here. We got to open up conversation. If they don't, you ask a few little closed questions, like, do you feel that this is fair? Yes or no. Why do you think it's fair? Well, tell me what you think is not fair and why. Kind of continue to get into the why. Again, get into discussions like, what can you do? What do you think you can do to improve? Where can you improve? Are you a good team player? And it might be that the person, see, sometimes these pet rocks are also very afraid. Okay, they don't like these performance appraisals. They really don't feel good about sitting in a performance appraisal. So the whole thing is to open up that communication, to make sure that if you've had a relationship with this individual, then, you know, I'm sure that they will open up and talk. So that's another thing that we got to think about here too. The nattering nabobs of negativism. Now, again, showing my age, because this was a term that was coined by a guy by the name of Spiro Agnew. And that was back in the early 70s, I think. He was a vice president under the Nixon administration, and he was indicted for tax evasion or tax fraud or something. And while that whole thing was coming out, the press was on there, and that's what he called the press, the nattering nabobs of negativism. So here we go. Nothing's ever right, okay? It's never my fault. God, I hate people who don't take accountability and point fingers at everybody else for their own inadequacies, okay? People who don't take that accountability, and what we've got to do is, you know, allow them. You know, this place is screwed up, you're screwed up, and all that kind of thing. You know, they kind of talk about that. But we've got to, first of all, we've got to take that negativity out, okay? And we've got to make sure that they do not spread that negativity. And we've got to wonder why they say that. So why is it not your fault? If your NPR score is low and other people's are high, just tell me. Let's have a discussion. I'm not going to get into any kind of argument. I'm not getting into any sneering or sarcastic comments. I want to know. So the whole thing is that we've got to control that conversation and make sure that it doesn't spiral down out of control. So that's the whole thing, is we've got to maintain our cool, maintain the communication, and again, find out why it's not your fault. What's not right? Why do you mean this place is screwed up? Don't just tell me it's screwed up. Tell me why. And these are the kinds of things that we've got to do. And then you can come back with something different. Why it's not so screwed up. So here we go. Then we got the dominator. They're the ones that will just start talking and you can't get a word in edgewise, okay? So they're going to dominate your conversation. They're going to try and keep things going. You've got to interrupt the dominator every once in a while, especially when they get off track, and say, it's my turn to talk. I will talk, okay? And they listen. And when they start interrupting, you don't allow it, okay? So you've got to kind of sit there and say, no, I'm talking now. And be very cool, calm, collected about that. You will get your opportunity. And then there's just people who just like to talk. They go just gab on and on and on and on and on. Well, we got to make sure we kind of keep the discussion focused and not get off on some kind of weird tangents all over the place. Now we've also got the volcano, the one that just kind of blows up. Don't tell me I'm not exceeding expectations. And you have individuals like that. In fact, it's kind of funny when, we do, in my past life, we've had a lot of people do self-evaluations, and it's a binary thing. It's either people really either think they're the greatest thing or put down on paper that the greatest thing because someone told them never to show your areas of weakness, or they're hard on themselves. I was always one of those that was hard on myself. So there you go. I always can do things better. And there's always room for improvement. So we've got to actually make sure that, when the volcano kind of blows up, that we don't get emotional back at them. Okay? You're the worst person I ever worked for. Whatever. I mean, that's just some examples. But the thing is like, okay, fine. Let's talk about your performance. And the whole thing is that we've just, again, the best way to treat that volcano, because what they want to do is get you into an argument, and if you allow them, they win. So you've got to maintain that cool, calm, collected kind of thing. Let them talk through some of their things. If they want to, let them calm down. If they can't calm down, then we're going to have to reschedule the meeting for another time, okay? The thing is that communication stops when one of the two people are emotional. So if you can't continue a conversation because somebody gets into name calling, gets into saying horrible things about you or the organization or those kinds of things, then we're just going to have to go about and do it later, okay, if they can't get out of it. But your job is to make sure that they get into the calm time frame, or frame of mind, I should say, and then you can talk about things. So that's how things happen there. Then there's always the failure. Unfortunately, we're not in high school anymore. And, when they got an A for effort, well, A for effort doesn't mean anything. It's results that count. Excuse me. It's results that count. And the thing is that we've got to come to the realization that just because someone can't make it in our organization doesn't really mean they're a failure, okay? Now, I've been, a little bit sarcastic and, kind of funny with this kind of thing, but the fact of the matter is that, some people just aren't cut out for it, okay? That just doesn't mean that they're failures. It just means they're not suited for the job, okay? And we've got to, must improve immediately or face termination. But the thing is, you've got to be very patient and careful and understanding with individuals like this. Do you want to continue to work here? Well, if so, this is what has to be done. Now, we do hire people that we know that, just don't have the personality, don't have the drive to make this work for them. So we've got to move these people on. They're probably not happy. You're not happy. Nobody's happy. So let's just kind of like, instead of, delaying the agony, let's kind of let them move on. And that's extremely important kind of thing too. So with that in mind, these are your action items, okay? Clearly define expectations and standards. Communicate to associates in a timely manner. Monitor and follow up continuously. Take responsibility for improving talent and take the responsibility for improving future performance. So those are a couple of things. Now, with all of the training that I ever do, I always ask the individuals to take down a piece of paper and write down 2 things you will do differently when you conduct your performance appraisals this year. If not, it was a waste of time. If you don't do anything differently, you don't do anything better, then we just wasted our half hour, 45 minutes, whatever time frame this is. And you know what? I'm getting too old to waste any more time because I got less time left, okay? And I'm sure all of you do. So the whole thing is sit down, write 2 things down that you'll do differently. I'll wait. I'll wait. Did you write them down yet? If not, do it right away. And thank you and good luck. Bob McKenzie signing off. Have a great day, great performance appraisals. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be here. Thank you. Bye-bye now.